Hi there, welcome back. It's been a few days since I posted the last video. I've been trying to work on the lighting in here. I've got a piece of cardboard in the back. The light's coming in at it's really causing a glare, and that might slip. I'm not sure. I can barely tape anything behind there because I don't know if you can see it. Probably not. The resolution's pretty bad, but it's all wet back there. It's so cold outside. Everything gets, the condensation builds up. It rains in here all the time. I'm constantly dabbing the ceiling and the walls to try to keep the water off me. But hopefully that stays put while I go over this video here. I've got some notes. This is just going to be a continuation, hopefully short, on the last video. I have notes because there were things that I think I wanted to clarify, and I'm sorry I keep doing this, but I won't be able to do this in the future. So here we go. And these aren't necessarily in a particular order, but they all happened around the same time, and it's all they're all details that I think are important. So Barb and Toshio, my clients, all of the directives that they were giving me were done remotely via mostly email, phone calls as well. But they were primarily living in Boston. They had just purchased a place in Boston within the past, 3 years or so. But they lived all over the world. They had places in Santa Fe. I think they had a place in New York, the Boston place, south of France, perhaps London. I'm not sure, but they were spread out everywhere. They had seen the storage unit that I moved out of to move them in the most current storage unit, the one they eventually locked me out of. They had seen that place once. It was I think they happened to be nearby. Maybe they didn't have someone to deal with that, with those affairs, so they did it in person and decided to take the storage unit. The reason I mention this is because it's important to put in perspective. They had made some decisions, whatever they really were, to essentially steal from me, based on a lot of, if they made that decision to decide to not pay me this money, honestly, they didn't do it honestly. I'm going to reveal some information. There's no way they could have done it honestly. Anyway, they never saw these storage units, but except for the first storage unit one time. The storage unit that I was in when they locked me out of it was a storage facility, and they occupied 6 to 8 storage units. It's been a long time so I forget. In order for them to understand what they were dealing with, I had to draw up a plan view map of the storage facility and show them to scale where their units were in this facility and what the dimensions were. Now, prior to being locked out of this, they were getting a whole lot of work out of me. I was being strung along. My pay is coming. Lost in the mail was, I think, the primary excuse that was given. I moved them out of the smallest storage unit within that facility just days before they locked the doors. And that required me to bring some things. They had told me they wanted some of that stuff to be brought to the dump. They were just junking it, which would require me, as it always had in the past, to unload my truck full of my equipment, my carpentry equipment, into one of their storage units temporarily, load my truck up with trash, bring it to the dump, come back, load my truck back up with that storage equipment. I mean, with that, with my tools. Now, I mention this because I would carry thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment in my truck. I luckily, when they had locked me out, had come to grab that equipment. I think I left it in there for a couple of days. I generally like to get it back in my truck as soon as possible, but with this new storage facility, they were only open until 5 p.m., which meant that I didn't have access to it 24/7. And to do a dump run, I would usually get back so late that I would end up just leaving my things in whichever storage unit made the best sense to leave my stuff in, and come back and get it at a later date, the next day or something. I mentioned that I was bankrolling this whole endeavor while I was waiting for my payment. I had hired about 12 people over the course of the time that I worked for these folks, and I never ever failed to pay these people. I would pay them depending on their how they needed to be paid. So there were some people that I hired for long term, where they were okay with me paying them, once a week or every few days. There were some folks that I would hire on a per diem basis, or I might need them for a week or something, and they may want to get paid daily. Whatever the case was, I always paid them the way they wanted to get paid. And I never, ever didn't pay someone, even when I wasn't getting paid. I want to make sure that... I mentioned that because this comes down to integrity. And I never had much money. And even when I was doing my best, I never had much money. I was paying people during this time while I was seeing the very, very few funds that I had left to support my life and bankroll their operations. I was paying employees. And these people had so much money. For them to not pay a working class people is it is entirely unacceptable. It's I consider it murderous. That may sound exaggerated, but the economy is such that middle class encompasses, I suppose, a pretty wide variety of incomes, but people who are living, let's call it paycheck to paycheck, that type of environment, when a person is, let's say, one or two paychecks away from not being able to afford the essentials, rent, groceries, the essentials, the things that we rely on survival. When a person who is well off, in an order of magnitude of hundreds or thousands. I mean, it would take me probably 1,000 lifetimes to achieve the level of wealth that these people had, and probably still currently have. To not pay someone, it puts them in there's a very likely outcome that they will lose everything. And when you lose everything, that means that you end up, everything that you have sacrificed, everything that you have accumulated, the things that you need. I'm not talking about just trivial materialistic items, things that you need for a rich life. Those things end up being abandoned. Your health is significantly becomes diminished. You don't have any place to go. You're not able to prepare foods the way you normally would. Nearly every aspect of your life is changed, and health declines significantly, and you are on a downward trajectory toward death. I don't think that I'm being hyperbolic about this. It really is. I mean, health declines so rapidly and so consistently when someone does not have the bare essentials. And I don't think that most of the population realizes this. So it's important to try to put that in perspective. These people have so much, and they're willing to put people who have so little in peril, in such serious, very real peril. I'm sorry, that wasn't in my notes. I'll try to stick to these notes here. I'm just about done. I had explained many times that I needed to do my work, my own work, carpentry. I was doing a variety of work. I had established a business for myself. And if my client was not willing to allow me to work on their affairs nonstop, they seemed to arbitrarily halt production. There didn't seem to be any particular reason for it, and became a pattern that I realized where they would halt the workflow in the wintertime, which is precisely when I needed to, if I was going to work for them, and I wasn't going to work for them constantly, the time I needed to work for them was in the wintertime. The time that they needed to halt the work was spring, summer, and or fall. Those are the months that I was able to pull together my own work. Or I had a higher likelihood of being able to pull that work together. The pattern that I noticed was that, and I made them fully aware of this. I wanted them to understand this, because I expected that giving them that information would allow them to, they would realize that I obviously need to make money, so they would work with me. The pattern was, however, they would stop workflow in the wintertime, and they would ask me to do things during the times when I would be more likely to have my own work. That's important because as I approached the end with them, they had I had lined up I forget what the job was, but it was a job that I had lined up. I had to abandon that job in order to work on their affairs, and I was working on their affairs because I had made such a commitment to them from the beginning, and the payout was, if they worked with me, I was able to use this as an opportunity to supplement what I wasn't able to make during a 9-to-5 kind of job, and make more money. And that 10% payout for brokering the sale of their collection was my escape. It was my escape. It was my ticket to financial freedom. Whether I continued to work for these people or not in the future was going to be entirely up to whether or not they were willing to pay me what I deserved, a fair rate for the type of work that they wanted me to do. And I could embark on my own endeavors. Furniture building is something I very much wanted to do. I wanted to write. Anyway, I realized that they were starving. Once I was able to look at this situation after the fact, after I realized they had no intention of paying me at all, they were, it was a premeditated act. They were intentionally starving me out. And what that was allowing them to do was put me in a vulnerable position so that I wasn't able to focus on getting my money back from them. I had to, and that is exactly what happened. I was able to devote only a very little amount. I devoted about a month of really trying to track them down and talking to lawyers and trying to figure out every avenue I could to, if they intended not to pay me, get my money back. But I was only able to devote so much time to that before I had to make the money to survive. So I think that this was a premeditated act. They had decided they weren't going to pay me for some amount of time, and they wanted to get as much work out of me as possible and then leave me in the most vulnerable position that they could to ensure that I wasn't going to come after them. Now, right about this time, Mela Rockefeller, the only person who had responded to my advertisements for their collection, she was coming back to continue to shop through their collection. She had run out of time the previous time she had come over, and so we were going to finalize the sale of the things she knew she wanted, and she was going to continue shopping for through the collection. She hadn't seen everything yet, so she was potentially going to buy even more. She was likely going to buy more. I think she had seen some photographs of some things that she wasn't able to look at in person that really caught her eye. So she had a list of things that she was going to buy, and she was ready to do it. She had contacted me. She was coming up, and we were going to finalize that sale. However, I think it was days or a week or so prior, I had found that I was locked out of the storage facility. And I had to explain to her that I couldn't finalize the sale with her. I had no access to the merchandise that she wanted. I had mentioned intellectual property. That was my that was a very real insurance. That was a protection that I had. Because the amount of time and money, the time that I had invested and the people that I'd hired had invested, and all the money and resources that had gone into cataloging their collection, made it really, it made it nonsensical for them to stiff me for any amount of money that I would normally ask for on an invoice. My invoices were, let's say between $2,000 to $5,000 or $6,000. They had invested, let's say, over $100,000 in this endeavor. So they had committed to this fully, and for them to try to make out with a few $1,000s by not paying me would have undermined the entire process, and they would have been out everything, because without the intellectual property showing that where their items were and how they were organized, they would have had to start the whole process completely over again. Unfortunately, these people were too foolish for that to work for me. They didn't take that in consideration. I had wondered about this for quite some time, and it turns out that I was phoned by someone years later who ran that storage facility, and they were trying to get in touch with my client, at this point in time, previous client. And we talked for a bit, and he had told me that they had some people come in and redo the entire project that I had spent so long and meticulously cataloged, and it was all for nothing. They did it all over again just to get a little bit of money out of me. When I say a little bit, it actually wasn't, for me, it wasn't much. It was a whole lot. It was, what did they owed me for? They owed me for time worked up till that point. Expenses paid. I was bankrolling their project. The sale of the furniture, the money that, the revenue they would generate from the sale of the furniture to Mela Rockefeller would have paid for all expenses for that project, for the advertising and the sales portion of that project, and it would have paid me 10% of the revenue generated from that furniture. It also meant that the work that I would be getting in the future, it was tens of thousands of dollars that I was out, and I had not only did I forfeit doing the work that I had planned to do for my own business, that also means that I'm losing potential clients. It's harming me in more ways than just not simply being able to generate revenue for that portion of time. Those projects that I turned down for Barb and Toshio very well could have been potential long-term clients. I may have sacrificed future income. I'm nearly done. This was a long time ago, and I was trying to figure out what I was doing for money. I had a client that wound up becoming a very long-term client. I had him for about 10 years, and at the time that things were sort of drying up with Barb, but she hadn't stiffed me, or I didn't realize she was going to. He'd contacted me to restore an old barn that he had. He lived on an island in Casco Bay. So I had been doing that, and I had injured myself there. I stepped on it was an old, about 150-year-old barn. And it was these really big, the nails were about, no exaggeration, they were about 5 inches long. I'd say 4.5 to 5 inches long. And I stepped on one of these things. It went in my foot, I'd say about 2.5 inches in, between the thickness of my sole and like the 1.25 inch plank that the nail was in. thing went deep into my foot, and it rendered me, I wasn't able to walk for about 6 weeks. So during that time, all of this whole thing was coming to a head, and I realized at some point, I think I had just returned back to work after that 6 weeks, she intended to stiff me. Okay, so I'm going to end this here. I went through this longer than I expected to. I'm going to wrap it up within just a very short video, the next video, and then I'm going to move on, and we're getting close to this, me actually being out here being homeless. I am approaching that. So let me stop here, and I'm going to jump back in the next vid to wrap this up. I just want to collect my thoughts and try to do that video concisely. I went longer here than I should have, and than I expected to. I apologize about that. Please do join me in the next video. Thank you.